All right, so V3 just launched, and I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about where the performance gains are coming from. First, I think we need to understand a little bit more about how Stagehand works under the hood. And that really starts with building a hierarchical structured representation of the DOM and all of its subtrees. Each of those kind of like lines is associated with an element and some text. Each of those elements is associated with an ID. And so we basically take that tree and we give it to an LLM and we say, hey, Mr. LLM, what action should we take based on this description? And then it'll say, here's the ID of the element and here's the action you should take. And so there's a lot that goes into building the tree and like making it in a way that is not too verbose and just has the context that the LLM needs. But we also have to make sure we're including all the nodes and the elements in the hard to reach places like shadow DOMs and iframes. And then once the LLM decides what to do, we have to make sure we're able to go actually take the action. I guess backing up a little bit, we need a tree and we need elements and we need IDs. And so those IDs come from CDP. They're CDP node IDs. The funny thing about CDP is like those node IDs like are not necessarily guaranteed to be unique across frames. You could have like a node ID of 20 and then in the root DOM, you could also have a node ID of 20. And so that means you also need like a frame ID to be associated with each of those, like the root tree and then the sub tree or the iframe. And Playwright doesn't really expose those IDs in a nice way. So that means we have to go get them ourselves. And the way that we do that is by sending CDP functions as requests over the WebSocket. This gets really expensive with remote browsers if you have to send a lot of them. You can imagine on a site with a lot of iframes, how many times are we gonna have to ask CDP what frame ID that we need? It gets very expensive very quickly. But the frustrating thing is that Playwright's object model is based off of CDP's object model or just any browser's object model. There's frames, there's pages, there's the context. So all of this information is available, but Playwright doesn't really expose it in a nice way. This is really why we built Stagehand v3. We wanted to make sure that we had all the information that we needed so that we don't have to send extra requests over the WebSocket, just bumping up the latency. It becomes very apparent across long-running scripts with lots of act calls or observe calls, or really any time you have to build that tree structure, which is for any of our LLM-based primitives, like act, extract, observe, or agent. We built Stagehand v3 in a way where we actually listen to those events like on-frame attached or just any page change or whenever an ID gets updated, we update our own object model in real time so that whenever we need to create a tree structure again, we can just directly access those IDs and build it a lot faster. This has resulted in pretty much like a 40% speed increase across act, extract, and observe calls. So if you have a long-running script or even just a couple act, extract, and observe calls, that's when you're gonna see the reduction in latency. If you just have regular deterministic actions, like if you had a stagehand page.locator.click and a playwright page.locator.click, you're really not gonna see much of a difference. We're really excited for you guys to try Stagehand v3. There's a couple breaking contract changes, but we think you'll find them well worth it. You can check out the migration guide at docs.stagehand.dev, and you can try it out today with npx Create Browser app.